Hello and welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. My name is Mark, and in this video I'm going to give you my thoughts on that epic game that took place at Twickenham between England and the Australian Wallabies. Let's get into it. G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're a newbie here, my name is Mark. I'm a retired Kiwi bloke. I'm a huge rugby fan and I live here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Okay, so what an epic game it was between Australia and England at Twickenham yesterday. And I tell you what, there's a reason why I don't make my videos immediately after these games. I like to reflect on the game for a little while. In some instances, I go back and I look at the replays again. And I haven't stopped watching the last 20 minutes of this game because it's been absolutely extraordinary. And it's funny, like most things, when you take another look at it, you see things in a different way. Now, if you've been watching my videos for the last few months, you'll know that I've been getting excited about this Australian Wallabies team, and in particular what Joe Schmidt has been doing to the team. And I always thought, as I said in my preview video for this game, that they just needed a big win to turn around the fortunes of this team, and there was probably no bigger platform in which to do that in front of a packed crowd at Twickenham on a Saturday afternoon. That was definitely the opportunity, and boy, what a game it was. And I've been reading a lot online from English supporters after this game, and I want to address some of that in my opinion and give my thoughts around that, but also just give the plaudits due to Australia and what they're able to achieve in this particular game. Now, I've got to say, as the game got underway and England started to put on a lot of different kinds of attacking play, they looked very, very good. Once again, Marcus Smith at number 10 was having a great start to this game. He was really the playmaker for this English team, and he was directing traffic around the ground. But what I really liked about England in that first period of play was they were holding on to the ball. They had structure, but they also went wide. They had purpose. They were having a lot of opportunities to go wide and get through the Australian defence. And they just played very, very good, tight, but also expansive rugby at the same time. And I tell you what, after 15 minutes of this game, I thought, wow, this is going to be a long day at the office for Australia. And it's going to be very difficult for them to get over top of this English team. People would have predicted, and myself included, that Chandler Cunningham himself would have scored 2 tries within the first 12 minutes of this game, but he did, and he was having a huge impact on the game as well. The more I get to see this guy play, the more impressed I am with him. He's a beast of a guy, but he's also very good when he hangs out on the fringes, and he gives this England team just another weapon who can really get through defensive lines. And they were 2 very, very good tries by the English in that first opening period of play. So by the time that Marcus Smith had got the conversion over for Chandler Cunningham South's second try, there was only a penalty for Lolesio for Australia in that time, and England had shot out to 12 points to 3. 12-3 became 15-3 after 19 minutes when Smith got another penalty kick opportunity, and then a minute later in the 20th minute we had a big play in the game, and I thought this could be something that actually has a big impact on the game. We saw Faye Waboso go off with an HIA, and he wasn't going to return in this game, so we saw Slightholme come on and take his place on the wing. Then in the 22nd minute we saw an unsavoury thing happen. Tom Curry got knocked out, and unfortunately the referee appeared to look at him laying on the ground and didn't stop the play. One of the English players made mention of it pretty quickly and made sure that Ben O'Keefe stopped the game for Tom Curry to be attended to. Now, this is not something we want to see in the game. Of course, player welfare and player well-being should be centre and front of every situation, and that one wasn't a good one for Ben O'Keefe. So Tom Curry left the field, and we weren't going to see him again in this game. So in that period of 5 minutes, a really big play, I think, for England, losing Waboso and also Tom Curry. Both had started the game really, really well, looked very dangerous for England, and they had to readjust with some new players on the field. Now, what I'm liking about this Australian team is they keep their patience and they fight back in games, and that's what we saw, of course, against New Zealand in that first test in Sydney when they came back storming in the second half and nearly stole that game. And I just thought back then in that game, I thought, yes, this Australian team's got a lot of good resilience and they're not going to be put down and out in any of the games. And that's what we saw a few minutes later when Tom Wright went over for a great try, and he'd been playing really, really well in the opening period of play. And as Australia started to get into this game, I started to see a lot of Australian players playing really well, and it was being led by some of their big forwards. We saw Angus Bell doing some great runs. We saw Rob Valentini doing what Rob Valentini does. And Harry Wilson at number 8, who's really growing on me as a number 8 and also a captain, started getting more and more into the game. So by the time Wright had scored that try, Australia was starting to get back on the scoreboard. They were starting to get more momentum in the game. And as that momentum came, you could see that the belief was starting to grow as well. Taniela Tupou cost his team a few incidents around that mark, and it was particularly 2 penalties that it gave away. One was in kicking range. Marcus Smith got that, so England went out to 18 points to 10 after 30 minutes. Now, despite that penalty by England, you could feel that Australia were getting back into this game, and it was unfortunate that in that first 20 minutes, England weren't able to kick on and really use the emphasis when they started well in this game to go on and score more points. And I think that's when things started to change for the English team. As Australia got more and more into the game, particularly on the scoreboard, it started to show in England's performances. Tupou went on to make another mistake with a knock-on in the next period of play, and it gave England an opportunity to clear the ball from a dangerous situation. However, Australia weren't finished, and it was a few minutes later that we were going to see a great try by Australia, and it was that man, Harry Wilson, that went over to score it. Now, the Harry Wilson try was a great one because it was set up by Tate McDermott, who had come on for Jake Gordon, who'd had a bit of a head knock, gone off to get stitched up or whatever it was. And McDermott came on immediately and started to make a difference. He did a couple of sniping little runs. He upped the tempo of the game, and that led to that Harry Wilson try when he took a very, very good pass from Tate McDermott. So Australia were right back into it, and you could feel the momentum started to change in this game. But it was a high quality game. England were getting the ball and they were doing some really good things with it as well. But Australia's defence in the first 30 minutes of this game was very, very impressive. So 18-10 became 18-17 in favour of England, and the conversion was successful from Lolesio. So we're getting closer to half time. And this was really interesting because the way England started the game, I had no expectation that Australia were going to be that close on the scoreboard at half time. And I had said in my previous video that, or the preview video I should say, that if Australia were in shouting distance at half time, this could get very, very interesting. But they weren't finished in the first half. They got a penalty opportunity in the last minutes, and Noah Lolesio got that over to take the Aussies into half time in the lead by 20 points to 18. Now, England had their chances, and later in that first half we saw a great break down the left hand side. Slightholme got the ball, he kicked it ahead with the try line open, but unfortunately he put too much weight on the ball and ended up going dead in goal. So it was just small margins once again, as we see in many of these test matches, that cost England on that occasion. They could have gone close to scoring if Slightholme had kicked that ball a little bit softer into the Australian dead ball area. However, it was Australia that went to the half-time with a lead, even though it was 2 points. They would have been pretty happy, and I think Joe Schmidt would have said to the boys, okay, the defence is working well. We've kept England out for the best part of the second part of that first half, after they looked very, very dangerous in the first 20 minutes. Joe Schmidt would have been really, really impressed with the Australian defence at the back end of that first half, because England did have some opportunities, but they kept them out. And we've seen when the Australian defence falls off, particularly that game in Argentina and also against the All Blacks in Auckland in their second game, that they can let in a lot of points. That wasn't happening on this occasion. I was very impressed in the first half when Tate McDermott came on. Jake Gordon was playing well though, and Tate McDermott just came on and gave for a few extra minutes because we saw Gordon come back on the field. He gave a little bit of emphasis to this Australian team, which they needed to go forward. But the more we saw of Fraser McWright and Harry Wilson and Rob Valentini in this game, the more I was impressed with. And I thought Angus Bell was having one of the best games I've seen him play in the Australian number 2 jersey. And I can't close up the first half summary without talking about the new boy. Yes, Joseph Su'a-Iali, playing in the number 13 jersey for Australia, did a couple of really good depth touches in that first half, and it made him look like a seasoned professional, even though that this was his first international rugby game in a Wallaby jersey, and any jersey in fact, in terms of international level. So it was really good to see him get off to a good start. Len Ikitau, though, was impressing me at number 12, and that combination seemed to be working really well for Australia. Ikitau was having the best game I'd see him play this year for Australia, and he's had a couple of good games for Australia. And missing Hunter Paisami, Australia weren't missing Hunter Paisami in that first half. Callaway was doing good on the wing as well, as was Dylan Peach. And Tom Wright had made some fantastic counter runs from fullback. So I was impressed with the Australians right across the field in this game in the first half. I thought they handled and managed that onslaught from England in the first 20 minutes very well. They got themselves back on the scoreboard at the back end of that first half, to the stage where they went to half-time with a lead. So I think they would have gone into half-time really believing that they had a chance in this game. On the England side, I think Steve Borthwick would have been a little bit unhappy with the way that England finished that first half. They had that momentum in that first 20 minutes. They didn't capitalise on it by scoring more points, and they led Australia back into the game by allowing them to score the points that they did. So I think Borthwick would have been saying, look boys, let's go back to the intensity we had in that first 20 minutes, in particular focusing on our execution, making sure we get our transitions right. There was a lot of penalties starting to be given away by England in the back end of the first half, and that was just them being a little bit too keen, I thought, to go forward against this Australian team. Well, the second half got underway, and as I said, Jake Gordon came back on the field again at halfback for Australia, replacing Tate McDermott, who went back to the bench. And a couple of minutes into the second half, we saw a great break by Andrew Callaway, who kicked ahead and had the big chase on towards the England line. On that occasion, England were able to stop Australia from scoring any points, but it just showed intent from Australia. They were going to throw everything at this England team in the second half. The question was going to be, could England respond and come back into this game, or was it going to be a battle to the end? Well, we're about to find out. Australia really had their tails up at this stage, and after Callaway's break, we only had to wait 2 minutes more before Tom Wright did another fantastic counter-attack, nearly got to the English line. The English just recovered, and Ben Spencer was able to clear on that particular occasion. But again, Australia were breaking through the English defensive line, and they were making it look pretty easy as well. Around the 45th and 46th minute, we saw a couple of changes for Australia. Taniela Tupou went off. We didn't see the best game from him this particular game. He was having problems with his angles in the scrum, and he was getting penalised a couple of times from Ben O'Keefe, who was taking particular notice. Then we saw Max Jorgensen come on for Dylan Peach. Peach had a pretty good game, I thought, did some good things, and young Jorgensen had come on, and boy, I bet you he didn't imagine in his wildest dreams what involvement he was going to have in the outcome of this particular test match. But he was on the field after 46 minutes of play. We got to the 50th minute, and Australia back on attack again, and this time it was Williams. Yes, their lock went over for a great try. It was on the back of some really good work by Australia, and they'd really come to play in this game. And as the game went on, Australia, I thought, got better and better as a team, and that was really the conclusion for me in this game. The Australian entire unit was playing well on this given day. I thought Noah Lolesio was having a really good game at number 10, probably one of the better games in the yellow jersey that I've seen him play. A lot of people, including myself, have been saying that maybe he's not the solution for number 10 for Australia. But up until this stage of the game, I couldn't see anything that he was doing untowards that were causing Australia any issues in the game. So a great try by Williams, and it put Australia further in the lead. Now, unfortunately for Australia, Lolesio missed that conversion of the try by Williams, but they didn't have to wait very long before they got some more points in that. So in the 52nd minute, we saw Tom Wright do another fantastic break, almost scoring a try. England were back, just saving him from going over. And in the resulting pressure from the maul that was taking place, England got penalised. Australia got another kick at goal. Lolesio got it over, and it was 28 points to 18 at that stage in favour of Australia. But this game wasn't over, and I thought the team that scored next would probably have the big advantage, and it was England that came back, and it was thanks to Marcus Smith with a great crossfield kick. for Slightholme, who finally went down and scored the try this time. Missed out on one previously in the game, but he got over and scored a great try for England. So they were right back into this game now as we're approaching the 60th minute mark. They got the crowd back in the game as well, which was really important at this stage. So we're back to 28 points to 23 at that stage. Smith missed the conversion of that particular try. Wasn't having a fantastic day with his kicking boot. 3 out of 5 up until this stage of the game. And those points would become pretty important as the game went on. Around the 60th minute mark, we saw some changes coming from the Australians. We saw Salakai Lotto coming on, the big beast of a man. He's been making a big impact in World Rugby so far, coming off the bench for the Wallabies. But unfortunately in this game, he did a bad boy thing and got penalised early on. Well, as we went to the 60th to the 70th minute mark, this game was going to turn on its head. And so we saw Harry Wilson went off, unfortunately injured for Australia. We saw Lange Gleeson coming on. A good exchange there, but Wilson had played a fantastic game up until that stage, and I was very impressed with his leadership around the field of this Australian team as well. But in the 64th minute, the game turned on its head, and it was thanks to Marcus Smith again, who did a fantastic pass out to Slightholme, who put him over for his second try in this game. And England took the lead again with a great conversion from Marcus Smith. So the score was now 30 points to 28 in favour of England, and it was going to be a question of who was going to be the best team in the last 15 minutes of this game. Were the benches going to have an impact, or was it going to be something spectacular from an individual that was going to change the game? From the 70th minute to about the 74th, we saw a bit of an arm wrestle going on. Both teams knew how close it was. Neither team wanted to make mistakes, and we saw a bit of box kicking, aerial ping pong going on, while both teams were trying to get out of their territory and make sure they weren't in penalty range, because we had a 2-point game and it was probably going to come down to that in the last few minutes. But it was in the 74th minute when Australia broke the game open yet again, and it was Andrew Callaway who scored a fantastic try for the Wallabies. The English defence just crumbled under the pressure of Australia's multiple phases, and Callaway got in for a brilliant try to the Wallabies. So it was a good try for the Australians, and Ben Donaldson, who had come on for Noah Lolesio, got the conversion over, and the Wallabies were out to 35 points to 30 with just 5 minutes left in the game. The way the game was going, we all knew there was still something to happen, and Australia were going to concede another try. And it was really good work by England. They put the pressure on, they played really respectfully smart, and it was particularly that man Marcus Smith who put in another great kick and put Australia under deep pressure back in their own goal line. And Tom Wright had no choice but to go down on the ball in goal and give England a 5-metre scrum opportunity. From that, they pushed forward once or twice, and then Maro Itoje came out with the ball and darted over the line for England, scoring a fantastic try for England when they were under pressure. They showed a lot of resilience, they came back at the right time, and they snatched the lead away from Australia yet again. Fantastic try to England. Marcus Smith got the conversion over, and England appeared to be home and dried in this game at 37 points to 35. Australia were running out of time. In fact, when that try was scored and the play resumed, there was only 57 seconds on the clock in normal time. But Australia weren't done with yet, and even though the clock had ticked over the 80-minute mark, Australia kept going downfield. They had one final opportunity to put the ball out through the back line. They did so. The ball came out to Len Ekitau. He did a fantastic flick pass out to Max Jorgensen, who had about 40 metres to go to get to the English line. He got there and made a spectacular dive over to score the try. No Englishmen were able to run him down. The defensive line wasn't there for England on that occasion, and Australia had grabbed this game from the scruff of the neck in the last seconds of the game. And then to put the icing on the cake, Ben Donaldson hit the conversion over from the sideline. The final whistle blew. Australia had grabbed the stunning game by 42 points to 37 in the dying seconds. And what a spectacular game it was at Twickenham. The best this weekend by far, in my opinion. You know what? I'm so pleased for the Wallabies in this game, because it's all the hard work that all of the squad have been doing, and Joe Schmidt, to turn this around. We've only got to go back a couple of months and we'll remember Australia getting absolutely slaughtered by Argentina in Argentina. And so many of you wrote on the comments of that video here on my channel that Australia were written off. Some of you were calling for the British and Irish Lions tour of Australia to be cancelled and just writing off this Australian team. And I still believe that Joe Schmidt and the team could turn it around on this Northern tour and have a couple of really good performances, and all they needed was a win against a top team, I believe, to get self-belief into this team that they can compete again with the top rugby playing nations of the world. And that's exactly what they achieved at Twickenham on Saturday with that fantastic win. Not since 1995 had Australia done that, and with this group of young players who are really coming on, I think Joe Schmidt has finally found some of the combinations that he was looking for. I'm not going to say one player was better than the other, because I think this was a total Australian Wallaby performance in this game. All of the forwards played extremely well. Yes, there were some standouts like Angus Bell, like Rob Valentini, and also Nick Frost and Jeremy Williams, but every single one of them had a great game against this English team. And when it came to the backs, well, I think we found some new stars in Len Ekitau at 12 and Joseph Sua Ali in number 13 for Australia. Tom Wright, for me, has put an exclamation mark next to his name as one of the best fullbacks in world rugby at the moment. Outstanding performance. And players like Andrew Callaway and Dylan Pietsch, who are really underrated in terms of world rugby, played extraordinarily well. And of course, Max Jorgensen will never forget that try he scored in the dying moments. So this was a complete performance by Australia. They came back into this game in the first half when they were down. Then it was a seesaw struggle in the second half, and even when Slightholme and then Atoje got tries for England, Australia came back again, and you've got to give them so much credit for that performance. It was absolutely fantastic stuff. Now let's address all the hate that England are getting, and in particular Steve Borthwick at the moment, which I think is totally unwarranted. These were two test matches over the last 2 weekends that went down to the last seconds of the game. England could have won them both. They didn't. And as I've been saying throughout my videos, that's because the level of rugby at the top of the world rugby tree at the moment is very, very close. And we can see this happening across all of the games. We saw it again with Fiji versus Wales this weekend. So let's not underestimate how good this Australian team is, for one, and let's not underestimate how good this England team is. Marcus Smith was once again outstanding. He's got to be one of the best number 10s in world rugby at the moment, the way he's playing. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And I also think that the English forwards are playing absolutely great as well. Atoje is up there with the best in the world at the moment, and Chandler Cunningham-South, well, I just can't wait to see that guy play more rugby. So this is not doom and gloom, in my opinion, for England at all. I think they've just been a little bit unlucky in some of these games. And if you turn the picture around a little bit, we could have said the same about Australia in some of their earlier games this year. Sometimes you win them, sometimes you don't. So I truly believe that England have a really, really good rugby team. They're playing some very good rugby. They've just got to close out some of these games, and they've got a big one against the South African Springboks next weekend at Twickenham. And I want to see all their fans get behind them and support them as they take on the world champions. Because if there's any team in world rugby at the moment that has an opportunity to beat South Africa, I believe this England team could have an opportunity to do so. I think losing Wabasso and also Tom Curry in this game were big minuses for England. Those two guys were playing very, very well at the start of the game, and they're game changers themselves. So I think that also had an impact at some stage throughout this game. So there you go, that's my summary of the England versus Australia game at Twickenham this weekend. It was an absolute stunner. It was a fantastic game to watch. If you haven't watched the last 10 minutes of that game, go back and watch it. And if you have watched it, go and watch it again, because it's just such an exciting game of rugby, particularly if you're a neutral fan. It was really enjoyable to watch. So let me know in the comments what you thought of the game. Who were the standout players for you? I've mentioned a few of them in the video, but I'm sure you've got some different opinions out there that I'd like to hear in the comments. So make sure you stick to those right now. Thank you very much for watching my videos. Plenty more coming on the Autumn International Series. I've just watched Wales against Fiji, Scotland against South Africa today. You'll be seeing those videos appearing soon. And also don't forget there was a cracker game yesterday as well between Italy and Argentina. And we've got all the build up for next weekend's games, because some of the results from this weekend's games are going to really have a big impact, I think, on next week's round. So stay tuned for more here on Inside Rugby with Mark. If you're enjoying my content, hit the subscribe button. Please give this video a like. And I will see you again very, very soon in the next episode. Until then, stay safe, stay well, everyone. Keep enjoying your rugby no matter where you are in the world. And I'll say adios for now from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. See you soon.